This show has been brought to you by Interpool Security and the Creative Arts Center.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to the hosts of Candidates Unfiltered, Shawana Cashel.
It is an honor to introduce a distinguished figure in Liberian politics. She has lived a remarkable journey in service to her country, currently serving as the 30th Vice President of the Republic of Liberia. She brings a wealth of experience to the role in government. Please help me welcome Her Excellency, Madam Jowel Howard Taylor. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Please have a seat. All right. How are you today?
I'm fine. It's another day and we thank God.
Wonderful. From her role as First Lady during her former husband, President Charles Taylor's presidency, to her influential position in the Senate, where she chaired the Health and Welfare Committee on Gender, Women, and Children, Jowel Howard Taylor has made a lasting impact. Her dedication to education, health, and social projects, combined with her academic achievements, exemplify her commitment to Liberia's progress. Are you ready for Candidates Unfiltered? Yes! Wonderful. Well, I am ready to ask some questions. So how does it feel to be on the show?
Well, let me say thank you for bringing this unique angle out, showing the real people who are involved in many different aspects of our national life. It's a privilege and an honor for me to be here. I feel very special. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you for being here. So, you know, one of the things I love to do is play some games and kind of get people comfortable. So I hope you're ready to play some games with me. Okay. So today, I would like to get started with a quick game of this or that. Ginger beer or club beer?
Ginger beer.
Rice or pasta?
Rice.
Tea or coffee? Skirt or pants?
Pants.
Bold and colorful or simple and neutral?
And that depends on the mood though.
Right.
Sometimes I go both ways depending on how I feel.
Okay, fair enough. Gold or diamonds?
Diamonds.
Perfume or scented oils?
Scented oils.
Because they last longer, right? Dry rice or potato greens?
Dry rice.
Wonderful. You did an amazing job. All right, was that fun for you?
Yes, it was.
All right, so I have a picture on the screen. We found a baby picture or a family picture of you with your family. Are you the baby in the picture or are you the older child?
The baby picture.
Okay, you're the baby.
I'm the baby on my mother's lap.
Okay, wonderful.
The young man standing near me is my brother who passed away, unfortunately, a few years ago.
Oh, sorry.
But I'm the baby in the picture.
In the picture. I'm just amazed that you still have that picture. So let's go back to kindergarten. We'll start there. First day of kindergarten. Do you remember that at all?
Yes, I do. Funny thing is, stayed with me for a long time because of what actually happened that day.
Okay, I'm ready for the story.
In kindergarten, during those days, we didn't wear uniforms.
Right.
So my mother had bought me this beautiful pink dress and white shoes. And I guess I was a little excited. Come to eat breakfast, I sit on the table and I started eating scrambled eggs and I threw up.
Say what?
I threw up over my beautiful pink dress.
Oh, man.
And my mother was like, how do we begin this day? But I remember it because from that day till today, if you put scrambled eggs in front of me, I can't eat it.
So crazy. You do remember kindergarten. Wow, okay.
And the fact that it messed up my pink dress, I was really upset.
Right, the one that you really wanted to wear to school. Okay, so tell us what the energy was like in your home with your siblings. Were you the bossy one, the timid one? Tell me about that.
You know, my parents were the older generation, you know, before us. And they were very strict.
Right.
During those days, the elders would speak and the youngest would just be quiet. So I'm number 5. Okay. So, you know, nothing came out of me. Yes, no, maybe were the only things I would say. So I was really quiet. My mother always said I had a stubborn streak, though. I would find a way to do just what I wanted to do.
So tell me, sisters, brothers?
Well, I have 4 siblings before me, 3 sisters. My father was trying to get a boy. So he had 3 daughters and then 1 son. And then he said, oh yes, now I'm going to have boys. No. After that 1 boy, he had 3 more daughters.
Oh,
so
wow.
my mother had actually 1 son.
Okay, wow. So I have a picture on the monitor of you, young Jewel. I guess you were a teen in probably high school. In your teen years, who were some of your close friends, and how would your friends have described you? Were you shy, adventurous, mouthy, nurturing? Tell me about that.
The good thing is the friends that I had from high school, we're still friends today.
Okay.
We've lost one person. So it was Ayo David, Eva Clark, myself, Christine Kroma, and Doris Dean. So we're about 5 really close friends. Of course, there were other, Pam Taylor, Yvette Freeman, Ade Jones. So we were a large group of friends. I was always quiet, but I like to have fun.
Right.
And so I would tell them, let's do so and so thing. I would bring the party, and I would bring the fun.
But you were quiet, but you would bring the party.
Yes, I would bring the party.
All right. So now, what was one of the craziest things that you ever did as a teen and got caught doing and you got in trouble for? And if, after you tell me that, I want to know if your grandkids did the same, how would you react now?
I think the craziest thing I did was, I'm in 12th grade, and I think I'm a big girl. And so me and my parents started having issues, going out, not coming home when you were told to do so. And my mother had a problem with it, but you know mothers would talk and talk and talk. My father was very strict, and he would speak once in a while, and once he did it, you knew you were in really big trouble. And so I came home from school one day, and my mother said something to me, I don't remember what, and I said, I don't have to live in this house, I'm going, I'm out. So she said, okay, go. And so I packed my bag, and I moved to a friend. This is Friday. When my father came home and he said, where's Jewel? She said, oh, she said she's moving out. He said, okay, we'll see how long she lasts. Friday, I got to this friend's house. It was an open house, people coming, people going, no one asking you any questions. There were no responsibilities, but there was no food.
That was the catch.
So I was like, after the first day, so I said, what are we gonna eat? She said, we have to find our own food. I'm like, what? Then I started thinking about how much waste we had at home.
Right.
Why am I here? Saturday, same story. Sunday, Monday, we had to walk to school. So I'm sitting at school at CWA and thinking, how do I get back home?
Right.
This is not my cup of tea. Yeah. So fortunately, my sister called. She was in the States. The elders wanted to say, what's happening? They said, Jewel moved out. And so they called the school because they didn't have cell phones at that time. And my mother said, please come home. Your sister wants to speak to you. I said, thank you, Jesus.
And that's how you got home?
That's how I got back. And I went and I was packing my things. And my father came and looked at me. He says, oh, I guess where you were, you didn't like it, right? Yeah. I was like, I'm not even going to tell you the story. But that was the worst thing I could have done. And, and if my grandchildren would do it today, I would just tell them, go and see the world, because it's not what you see. Actually, most times you have it better at home than you would have it outside. But they don't see it because they think mothers are magicians and whatever they want, they get. But it's tough out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that story, though. I think I would use it, too. All right, so let's talk about first love and relationships. Are you open to that? Okay, all right. So do you remember your first love, and can you describe the feeling when you knew you had fallen in love for the first time?
Funny thing, I went to CWA at 10th grade. How old was I? About 15. And of course, when we were in school, it wasn't football, it was basketball. Right. Now, all of the top stars were basketball players. Tall, dark, handsome young men. And they would usually play at the ACS gymnasium on the old road because it was the best, it was air conditioned. So most of the schools would arrange their place there. And we went to one game and I saw this young man, tall, dark, handsome, all of the women fainting and falling over him. But I was quite shy, and so standing amongst the group, I don't know how he picked my eye. But when I saw him, I knew that this was someone that everybody was in love with him, and so was I. Richard Ross.
Name
He
drop.
he knows he's my first love. It's been many, 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 many years. But the thing was that you catch the eye of someone, and if you both fall in love, then it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
He knew how to not just play basketball, he was good to play music.
Right.
And that brought my love of music. He would play all kinds of songs, and just, it was an amazing time, really.
Wow, wow. I love how...
Still blushing when I think about
Look
it.
at that. I love how you're so open and honest and transparent. So I know it's getting good, but let's take a short commercial break and we'll be back faster than you can see into Fofo Jenjen liability.
Still to come.
But I went to work on Monday, and this gentleman shows up, locks down the whole place and says he's looking for me.
Do you need a reliable security service for your home or business? Interpool Security Guard Service is the answer. Contact them today.
What I like about the Reggio Emilia approach is that we don't have a fixed curriculum. Our curriculum is very flexible. We make our curriculum based on the interest and passion of the children.
Choose a Reggio Emilia inspired school where your kids can learn in flexible spaces and with mentors that are willing and ready to work with them based on their interests. At Cashel Creative Arts Center, a Reggio Emilia inspired school, we help build social skills, we enjoy learning, we express ourselves with confidence, and we welcome new experiences.
Candidates Unfiltered, the person, not the politics.
Welcome back. We're back with Her Excellency, Jowel Howard Taylor, and we've got lots more to uncover. So we're talking about love, and you know I can't stop where we were. So let's continue with that conversation. So I have a picture of your wedding day, and your marriage to former President Charles Taylor is very well known. Can you tell us how you first met and how you knew that he was the man you would marry?
You know, we met in a funny way. I was Miss CWA that year, and we had this major program at the E.J. Roy. Again, that was a common place for high school programs. And we had our Miss CWA pageant there. I think we were maybe 4 or 5 girls from CWA contesting for Miss CWA. And I didn't know he was in the audience. And I sang this song. I don't even remember what the song was. And they would ask you questions. At that point, I had a job, a small job, a cadet job at a printing press on UN Drive. It was the government's printing press. So they asked you, what were you doing? What would you like to be in the future? All of these questions would come about. So he paid attention to where I was. I didn't know him, in a crowd of about 1,000 persons. I ended up winning the Miss CWA. And the first runner-up thought she would win. So when they called her as first runner-up, she was so upset, she threw the flowers down and walked off the stage. Everybody was like, whoa. But I won the pageant, and I forgot what gifts they gave. But I went to work on Monday, and this gentleman shows up, locks down the whole place and says he's looking for me. So my boss said, there's someone looking for you. I said, who's someone looking for me? How can someone be looking for me? And then he came and said, can I take you to lunch? And I said, no, I don't know you. Why am I going to follow you to lunch?
So you hadn't seen him before?
Never seen him before.
Okay.
And then I said, but where did you meet me? And then he said, oh, I met you at the beauty pageant. And I want to take you to lunch. And I said, no, I'm not following a stranger. My mother said, don't follow strangers.
Right.
But he harassed me for about a month. Every day,
Wow.
he would go and sit in my office. When I came from school, I would come and meet him sitting there.
Persistence.
So at one point, the manager said, please follow this man to lunch, or else we're not going to be able to work. So I actually went to lunch with him, and we started talking. At that point, I didn't think, you're like 17, 18 years old now, so you don't think this is somebody you're going to marry.
Yeah.
But we had a good relationship. He was charismatic, and I fell in love with him. But marriage wasn't something we discussed at that point. He had his own life.
Yeah.
He had come from the States and got involved with all of the political things happening here. And I was still too young. I wasn't thinking about marriage at all.
Your parents, how did they feel? Did they know you were
My
dating?
father was upset.
Yeah, yeah.
My father was really upset. Because actually, Charles is about maybe 18 or 19 years older than I am.
Okay, okay.
So you can just imagine how upset my father was.
So you probably had to sneak out to see him, huh?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, so, wow, very interesting. Let me ask you this. Love, right? Lessons that you learned from love. Tell me something that you take with you and that you've moved through your relationships with understanding this about love.
And for me, there are two angles. The love I saw my parents live, committed, together, unity, commitment, dedication. And that's the love I grew up seeing. And so I take that into any relationship I have. And getting married to someone who become a president of a nation is a whole different story.
Right, right.
And all of the issues concerning African men and women was something that actually broke our relationship at the end of it, because it just became too overwhelming. I think love should be a relationship between two persons that understand one another, that they are both committed to the ideal of staying together and raising a family, and that they're committed to staying engaged regardless what happens.
Right.
And you give and take. It's never 100%. You will have your shortcomings and the person will have theirs, but if the two of you realize that the both of you are important to each other, then it goes beyond all of the crisis. And every time I would speak about it with Charles, he would say, oh, you're living a fantasy life. I said, no, I saw my parents live that life.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's impossible, but being what it was, that was a disappointment that actually made me at one point or the other say, hey, this is just not gonna work for me. I needed to get out.
So when your marriage ended, what was your toughest challenge? Because that's a high profile situation, right? It's all over the news, everybody knows about that. But what was the toughest part for you?
The toughest part for me was, because you know men will have their girlfriends. And I always say those relationships should stay out of your home, so that your home is safe and secure. But there are many times that those relationships actually come in, whether by text messages or whatever. You know, the Liberian psychic is a little different now than it was then, but it became an open secret. The women, the children. What broke my heart was it became public. So it wasn't a private issue, it was a public issue of all of the women and all of the children. Every year there was a new baby from somewhere else. And I think that is what broke my heart.
Yeah, got it. So I've put a picture of your family, what is a very beautiful, large family. So who's featured in this picture on the monitor?
Well, all of my children. And from the youngest, I have two grandchildren there. Jowel, who's now turning 18 in a few months. Charles, who was quite young then, who's turned 14. I have a third grandbaby who just turned 11. She wasn't in that picture. But from Benjamin Samby to Philip Taylor to all of my Mary and Bernice, Martha Ann, everybody. I do actually have a large family. Most of the Taylor children that have stayed with me have become part of my family. So it's a large family.
So you're a mother to many children, grandchildren. You're still like mom to them, nieces, nephews, like you said. What do you love about being a mother, and what is the hardest part about being a mother?
And let's talk about the hardest part.
Okay, we can start there.
Because I know my mother maybe had the same issues.
Okay.
The fact is that you know that this path that this person is taking is the wrong path. And you would say, don't do this. And they don't see it. They have to go and experience it themselves. So you know they're going to fall and they're going to have a heartache or they're going to get into trouble. And you would say it and they wouldn't listen. And I think that's the hardest thing for a mother. I have a sister who would say, I learn from other people's experiences.
That's me.
Yeah. She says, I don't want to go through all of that stress. If I see that this is trouble,
Right.
I stay away.
I agree.
But not many daughters especially are like that. And they have to just go out and get into their own trouble. And I think that's the most difficult thing, because you know this is where it's going to end up. And you will tell them, and they think you hate them at that point, but you say what you have to say. So I think that's the most difficult part of being a mother, that you would advise and give them guidance, and they won't listen until they experience it themselves.
Yeah.
The most beautiful part of it is the fact that love connects you either way. So when there's a problem, then you have to go and sit and listen and see the tears and hear the sorrowful stories, and you have to try not to say,
I told you so.
Told you so. But because that's it, you will say, I told you so.
Oh my goodness.
Then you can't say it at that point. You have to wait.
Yes.
And then I wait for about 3 or 4 months, and then something else will come up. And I said, that's what I told you the last time. And they'll say, oh God, I knew you were going to say I told you so.
I agree.
So I think that's the most difficult thing. But in spite of all of that, I think the love that exists between families is quite different. And that's why we say in our own Liberian way, family trees can bend, they shouldn't break.
Yeah.
Because regardless of what happens, the trees have to keep standing, because there are other generations that come out of the root.
So you do so much, you know, part of it is raising a large family, but you send them all to school, other people's children to school, you have lots of scholarships, you run a nonprofit, you are active in international organizations, you are the vice president of this country. What does rest and self-care look like for you?
0.
What? 0?
But especially when I'm home. Especially when I'm home.
Yeah.
There's a story of when we had Ebola, and that was election year 2014, and I was trying to regain my seat in Bon County. Remember, the whole country is shut down.
Yeah.
There are centers for Ebola patients, and I knew that if I didn't get involved at some point, it would have just been another X for me. And so, though people were staying home, I would dress up in my PPEs and go take water, take food and different things to the Ebola centers in Bon County. And so I was doing this back and forth, and I come home one day, and my grandbaby, Jowel, was maybe about 6 or 7. And I entered the door, and first thing she said, please make sure you wash your feet and take a shower before you come into the house. We don't want to catch Ebola. You heard Ellen Salif say everybody should stay home, and you don't want to stay home, you jump up and down. So I didn't pay any mom. I went, I did all of the things, and I went inside. And then she said to me, do you even live here?
Wow.
That was a real heartbreaking point for me. Because I didn't realize that if you wanted to be the best in your job as a woman, then you lose at one end.
Yeah,
and so that was difficult. As we continue to move around, I think being senator was a little bit more difficult than it is being vice president, because you're kind of in the background, you're not too much in the forefront. I'm still busy. Yeah. Just managing your time is difficult. When I get home, most times I'm tired, and by the time they say, hello, mommy, I said, what is the hello in today? I'm too tired. But when I travel, I usually get a little bit time to go and do my massage and do my feet and kind of wind down. But at home, it's running.
Yeah. That story resonates with me so much.
I know, and most women who are powerful and good at what they do have to put in so much time. Yeah. Now something gets lost. Yeah. And for me, that's the saddest part of my work.
So true. So I hate to stop now, but let's talk more after this commercial break.
Coming up next.
Being a private person, then I'll be happy to walk and go back to the market, and it keeps you grounded. It lets you see.
Do you need a reliable security service for your home or business? Interpool Security Guard Service is the answer. Contact them today.
What I like about the Reggio Emilia approach is that we don't have a fixed curriculum. Our curriculum is very flexible. We make our curriculum based on the interest and passion of the children.
Choose a Reggio Emilia inspired school where your kids can learn in flexible spaces and with mentors that are willing and ready to work with them based on their interests. At Cashel Creative Arts Center, a radio and media inspired school, we help build social skills, we enjoy learning, we express ourselves with confidence, and we welcome new experiences.
Candidates Unfiltered, the person, not the politics.
Welcome back. We've learned so much about our vice president. I am eager to find out a bit more by you saying yes or no to these questions, all right? You love competition.
Yes.
You speak another language.
Yes.
You love taking pictures.
Oh, I love the show. I do.
Hugs.
Yes.
Exercise.
No.
Dancing.
Sometimes, depending on the mood.
Singing.
I love that.
Prefer sitting in the back of a room.
And it depends. If it's about someone else, and we're trying to celebrate someone else, I don't mind sitting in the back.
I get it. Listener.
Now that's a tough one, because there's too many things running in my head.
So
I'm not a good listener.
Okay. Prayer warrior.
Yes.
Okay. Finish this sentence. I have never. Because I know you've done so much. I'm like,
That's
what
what
have
I'm
you
thinking.
never done?
I've never been on a vacation
No way.
in my entire life. I've never been on a vacation.
So I'm going to have to take the vice president on vacation. Oh, man. Okay.
I was jealous when you guys went on that trip. I think it was your birthday.
Greece.
And you guys, I
Yeah.
was like, how come I'm not at that place?
You were following me on Instagram. All right, we're going to have to go. All right, so here we go. Now, let's talk about your public life. Let's do that. So there's nothing about your life that is private anymore. Do you miss being able to go to the supermarket or down Waterside to buy fabric?
Yes, I do. And every now and then I squeeze it in and everybody's having a fit. But I think it keeps you grounded. At the end, all of this fades away. It's just a process. And eventually you go back to being a private person. And so it helps me not to get lost.
You think you're going to go to be a private person again?
I think so. After all of the political things, when you get older, you just kind of go back into, like they said, twice a child and once a man. So eventually, after all of the glamour and all of the glitz, you go back to being a private person. And I will be happy to walk and go back to the market. And it keeps you grounded. It lets you see the reality of the world. And I miss that.
Yeah. So you've been a first lady, a senator, and a vice president. Which is the hardest of the three jobs?
First lady.
Really? Tell me why.
And it should have been the easiest, but I found myself in a situation where there was war in the country. Everything was upside down. So I didn't get a chance to be, the regular first lady, having tea, having fundraisers, going around and enjoying myself, visiting other first ladies. I didn't get a chance to do any of that. In addition to it, the country was in the throes of a very, very, very difficult period. And so everything was always on the edge.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I had all of these complications in my own marriage. My children were away because we were in a crisis. And so I think that was the most difficult time.
Yeah. Sounds like it. So, like President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, you have opened doors for so many African women, or just women around the world. What is one story that you've heard of how you've impacted a young woman's life that was shared with you that you will never forget?
And of all of the stories I've heard over the last week, I heard an amazing story that really touched my heart. And had it not been for the cameras, I would probably have started crying. I had gone to this Islamic school 13 or so years ago. They had asked me to be graduation speaker, and I thought it was a high school graduation. And so I wrote this huge speech for high school students, and I arrived at the place, and there was a kindergarten graduation. And so I had to sit and think, now what am I going to say to these little girls?
That's a big difference.
Yeah. So I had to put that down and make it fun and just say a few words, and I took some pictures. And then I said I would provide scholarships for the girls who were in the kindergarten going to the first grade. I haven't gone back to that school until last week. So one of the young ladies who, from that kindergarten class, is now in the 12th grade. And so I went to pay school fees, and this is a school I've supported for 13 years. And so I said, since I'm in the county, let me just go and visit and see, what's going on. And so this young lady steps up to speak, and she started to talk about how I sent her to school for 13 years, and how the first time she met me, she was just in kindergarten.
Oh my goodness.
And she started to talk about all of the things. I was like, wow. And she started crying, and it was such an emotional thing. And she said thank you to me for the consistency of the work that I've done. She says, and you don't know us, you don't ask us where we come from or who we are or who our parents are. All you do is say, you guys have to do a good job and try to study so that you are better at the point when you finish school. And for us who are Islamic girls, you know how difficult just allowing them to go to school was maybe 20 years ago. Now they are allowed to go to school. When you hear her speak, I'll send you that video, you will be moved. And I was just really, really, really moved. And she wanted to say thank you to me for the consistency and the role model that I've been for her. And I think that touched my heart more than anything I can remember.
Wow. And you've been doing this for a very
22
long
years.
time. Do you even know how many girls you sent to school?
Well, I know the numbers. I don't know them.
No, but the numbers.
There are about 3,500 girls this year. Across Liberia.
Amazing.
Then we have 21 girls in Malawi.
Oh, wow.
And then we have 21 girls in Ghana. And we have 21 girls in Sierra Leone.
That is
so
amazing.
Finally, my organization is now going international.
Yes.
A little bit.
Oh, that is, y'all give her a hand. So we are at the end, but I have one more question. I can't believe it. I'm not ready for you to go yet, though.
I know.
All right, so my last question is, I know this is a non-political show, but with politicians, I got to ask this question. So tell me one thing you admire about President George Weah and why you decided to run alongside him for the second term.
President Weah and I met many years ago when I was in the U.S., just by chance. We had gone to Staten Island to visit his sister, and he had come from Monaco, I think, and his sister introduced him to my girlfriend Yvette and I. And just in passing, he stayed for about 30 minutes and then he disappeared. I didn't meet him again until I was First Lady, and he was playing for the Lone Star when President Taylor was president, and we were trying to win the African Cup of Nations or something. And we met briefly. And I spoke to him and said thank you for the games, and we didn't meet again until he won the Senate seat. Working together in the Senate, because we had worked together in 2011 as political parties, but when he became a senator, we began to work together on a lot of issues. Still, he went to ECOWAS, and so he was in and out of the Senate. But I knew that he was a sturdy person. He wouldn't speak except he had something to contribute. He wasn't a talker. He wouldn't just talk. He would do an analysis of the things that he wanted to speak about and bring a whole new angle to the debate. So he was very cautious, but when he spoke, he brought reasoning to the table. Had a chance to work together over the last, 5.5 years. But what I admire most is his vision for transforming lives of young people at the bottom. And during this campaign, he's talked a lot about where he came from. And now I see why some of the things he's passionate about. Let's talk about the wax fees that he made free. He spoke about the fact that he lived with his grandmother who wasn't working. She was a prayer warrior in the church, so they depended on maybe offerings that people would give her to pray for them. And there were many. And so many times he didn't have what he needed, and he was thrown out of school many times. Wow. And then he didn't graduate from high school. He had to go and play football. But he wouldn't have had the money for wax. And so we were in the Senate, and about 300 girls show up at the Capitol building one year. And when I arrived on the Capitol building compound, they said, oh, we're looking for you, and we're looking for Senator George Weah. I said, you're not looking for me, oh. They are not trouble inside because I knew what it was about. I said, but Senator Weah will soon come your wait. So they waited. When he came, we ushered people in his office, the leaders of the 5 or 6 schools, and he asked them, you know, what is it? They said, oh, we don't have money for a WIAC at that time. And he said, okay, I'll pay your WIAC fees. You'll go make the list. We'll send the money to the school. And then when they left, he said, Senator, it's a real burden for me seeing how young girls especially, because they will go from office to office, they get abused, all kinds of things happen to them. He says, if I ever become president of Liberia, I will make sure that this particular thing is removed, because it actually is a regional test to see how children are doing across the board. It should not be a figure that parents have to pay for, because it gives the country an idea of what the systems are like if they're working in conjunction with the other countries around our region. So it actually should be a national issue that governments pay for and not individuals.
Wow.
Way back in, I think 2015 or something like that. And so, well, we just laughed about it and we left it like that. When he was on the tour the last few weeks, he's been explaining why he talked about that story about how young girls would be abused. Go come back. In the end, most of them didn't take the exams anyway, because by the time you miss the deadline, then you have to stay in school. And he was really moved about that. And he talked about the fact that he had quite a hard time going to school. In the end, he ended up at the Muslim Congress. An Islamic cleric saw him and said, okay, I will pay your way to school, but you have to come and go to Muslim Congress. So that's how he ended up in Muslim Congress. Had it not been for that Islamic cleric, he probably would not have finished high school. And so for him, there should be institutions, and it is like that in Europe and other places, where the public schools are actually free, so that young children get a chance to get a basic education, which is what high school is. He's taking it to a new level, which is at the college level also, but his interest is in lifting the people at the lower level. And I think that is the most amazing part of what he does. Most of the programs, the PD that we run, if you look at the impact, is impacting people at the lower level. And for me, this has been the crux of our problem as a country. There's a small percentage at the top, maybe 10%, I'm not sure what, that have it all, and the 90% that seem to struggle to it all. So whether it's building new markets so that women stay in a decent place, and he was laughing at one of the places they have electricity there. So he's saying, you can even plug your telephone and charge it. You ain't got to be looking for a charger. So he's interested, coming from that kind of a tragic background, in how the lower level of people can be lifted. And I think this is what has drawn me to continue to work with him, because I think this is where we are and what we need as a country.
Wonderful. Thank you for that answer. Vice President, Madam Jewel Howard-Taylor's journey is one of resilience, dedication, and a commitment to both personal growth and the betterment of Liberia. Through challenges and triumphs, she has navigated the complexities of both public and personal life with grace. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your insights and experiences with us today, reminding us that true leadership transcends boundaries and paves the way for a brighter future. Thank you so much. And to all of our viewers out there, remember, behind every candidate is a human being with a story to tell. Thank you.
Join us next week for another raw and unfiltered look into the lives of our candidates.
You know, Liberia is one of the greatest countries in Africa, but we don't live up to it. And so I feel like I'm an ambassador every time I'm talking.
Candidates Unfiltered, the person, not the politics.